everyone, and welcome back to the long-awaited next episode of Sports from A to Z. I'm your host, Avery Schaefer. We hope everybody has had a great July 4th weekend. As you can see, I'm back with Zan Bando from his July 4th vacation in Wisconsin. How was that?
Oh, it was tremendous, but I have to say it was different than what I was originally expecting, just in regards to the masks and social distancing, and just kind of how lenient they were on some of that stuff. But overall, it was a very nice vacation, and it was nice to get away for a little bit. How was your 4th of July?
It was, the only word I can think of is unconventional. I would normally have been in Maine, but coronavirus had different ideas.
Right.
Yeah. So I just stayed around and hung out, basically. Watched a lot of celebrations from around the country on TV. So yeah, that was not the same as it would have been on a normal 4th of July, but still something, you know?
Exactly.
So with that out of the way, we have some breaking news to get to, don't we?
Yeah, we sure do.
And that is that all college sports will only play conference schedules this year.
Yes, and one of the first ones to do so was the Big Ten, that announced earlier this afternoon that they will be only competing against Big Ten conference opponents for the upcoming season, which means specifically for Illinois, for Illini football, that is, there were 3 non-conference games scheduled. They were in no particular order: Illinois State, Bowling Green, Illinois State, Bowling Green, and UConn. Those 3 games have now been canceled, and it is unclear when the college football season, or if the college football season, will even go on as previously scheduled.
And for those of you who don't know, at least at Illinois, college football alone constitutes 40% of the revenue generated by the entire athletic scope of things. So if that does not happen, it
would almost be catastrophic. It would be a very, very big deal, and it would hurt a lot of people physically, emotionally, and most certainly financially, I would say. Mm-hmm.
It would be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of football, there is also a big star that made some news recently in his response to derogatory comments.
Yes.
Of course, I am referring to Julian Edelman
and his response to DeSean Jackson of the Eagles. Yes.
And his response to DeSean Jackson of the Eagles. So, what do you think of what Jackson said and Edelman's response?
I just think overall the whole situation is really sad, to put it lightly. But I do think if you saw Julian Edelman's video today, it's all over the internet. He was and I got to say this: Julian Edelman could not have handled this DeSean Jackson situation about anti-Semitism any better than he did. just because of the simple fact that Julian Edelman, instead of completely destroying him for his views, said, hey, this is a time to really step back and have a critical conversation about, some of these really overarching topics that people don't really sit back and think about. Julian Edelman told DeSean Jackson, he's like, hey, DeSean, take me to a culture museum so I can learn more about African American history, and then I will take you I will take you on my own trip to Washington D.C. and show you the Holocaust Museum or whatnot. So I think Julian Edelman could not have handled it any better than he did, and he just wants to bring unity to this situation because the world events right now with everything going on with Black Lives Matter and all that, you want
that
people,
we will touch on.
right? You want people to to steer away of any controversy, and that's what I think Edelman was trying to convey to DeSean Jackson in his 2.5-minute statement today. So
now I'm going to get personal for a moment, and for our viewers who don't know, I am a follower of the Jewish faith, and as previously mentioned, I am a wheelchair user, as is Zan. So we, or at least I, have the unique position of being a member of two minority groups that are subject to this kind of speech, unfortunately, all the time. And this makes it sound very, very simple, but I think the solution, if there is one, the best solution is education and open-mindedness.
I would say something along those lines is super crucial because, look, here's the thing. My overall thing is this. He said some crazy things. He sent out an apology video and he put it on Instagram, and the Eagles, did their best to make sure to put out the proper statement that they don't tolerate that kind of behavior in their organization. And I think the more positivity that can enlighten people who aren't as educated and are going to make these mistakes just because of their own sole arrogance, I think it's better. I think it's better than a financial punishment. I think education is, the best form of understanding. The best form of understanding, and I think Edelman taking that step and offering Jackson the chance to go on a trip with him to do this is extremely, extremely telling of who he is as not only a football player, one of the better wide receivers in the league, but also as a humanitarian of society. So I think this series of events is super important and will hopefully bring together positive instead of negative change.
And the part of this that we have thus far overlooked is the mere fact that the mascot of the Philadelphia football team, as many of you know, is an eagle, a very patriotic symbol in itself.
100%.
What role do you think that played in this whole thing, if
any? I don't really see how it did. Not that I can really think of anything, but yes, the eagle as just a symbol, is a symbol of like freedom, independence. That's how I picture what an eagle is. But I don't think in this situation that the eagle symbol for the Philadelphia Eagles really had much to do with it. Again, I could be wrong. You and I are both just speculating here, but I don't see how the eagle itself had anything to do with what transpired.
No, I'm saying that I don't see directly what it had to do with anything that transpired. I'm just suggesting that there might be an alternate way of uh, conceptualizing the events based upon the eagle. And that is that if I could get constitutional for a moment, that one of the things that the eagle symbolizes to me is freedom of religion. And I think that is what Edelman is addressing.
That's a very interesting perspective. I did not think of that at all. But you bring up some relatively good points there. I was just thinking of it more, just like person to person, and not necessarily looking at like the symbol as having like more of a positive effect on the incident. But still, that's extremely interesting of you to bring that up.
But the same thing can be said of the Washington Redskins, can it not? A symbol like that can be viewed, and many people unfortunately don't view it this way, as a celebration of the Indian tribe that it represents.
Yeah, most people do not, and I'm sure you've seen most of the Redskins' major sponsors want the name changed, and it'll be interesting to see if they actually go ahead with it in the near future or before the season begins.
Seeing that I put out there that taking the logic I used about the eagle, can you see how the same logic might apply to that symbol too? Or
Well, in terms of a positivity symbol, no. I think the Redskins symbol and the Eagles symbol are completely opposite.
yes, they are opposite, but they're opposite sides of the same issue. Because in the Redskins, you have a symbol that is a wrongfully oppressed group, and you have the eagle, which is a symbol of freedom, as I said. So what you have when the Redskins play the Eagles, for example, is a fight over American ideals. If you extrapolate that, as I am doing right now, can you see that? And that's where sports is so powerful. I think it and that's exactly why the symbols should stay as they are, because they provide an avenue through which to look at this stuff without appearing to do so.
I see.
Yeah. So, with that said, one last thing here. the Atlanta Hawks, as I've mentioned to you, have offered up their arena, State Farm Arena, as a political polling place. And arguably, the same arguments can be attributed there. What do you?
In regards to them using it as a in regards to them using it in a different fashion?
Yeah, because sports, if you look at it, all sports is a combat without weapon. It is a combat.
Right.
So putting the political combats of the country into a sport, like I have suggested here, that is why sports is so powerful in general, and that is what Edelman is really saying, whether he intended to or not.
That is also a very good point.
So, what do you think sports can and should do to further that sort of understanding? Because it has a unique role potentially in doing something like that, if it takes it.
Do you find it that the players speaking out is inspirational and uplifting? Because I do.
Yes, but like Colin Kaepernick, as I've said before, that version of speaking out is completely unacceptable, because you have the issue of a captive audience, whereas with something like what the NBA is doing in the resumption of the 2020.
So you think that the NBA, with them being more collective, is different than what Kaepernick did, where he was the one who began the movement. When you're saying that the NBA is an organization, right? Am I hearing you correctly?
Exactly. That is the main difference between what Kaepernick does and what the NBA as an organization is doing. And Kaepernick is unacceptable, and the NBA is very much acceptable, and more leagues should do things analogous to what the NBA does.
Well, I agree. I agree with your last point, but we can agree to disagree when it comes to the Kaepernick situation. But I do completely understand where you're coming from in regards to that. More leagues should follow the NBA's lead on this, and I would tend to agree for sure.
So to bring this back to something a little bit lighter, as we wrap up here, what is your favorite personal memory of sports bringing people together? Like, whether that be your family or something you've observed as a third party. What is your favorite memory of, like, that real togetherness really becoming apparent?
Well, there's too many to even consider, but if I were to pick one, I think seeing the Cubs fans come together after winning the World Series and being able to go to the parade, which was one of the top five largest which was one of the top five largest human gatherings ever, was extremely cool because there were people from all walks of life there, some from Chicago, some not from Chicago, people who weren't even baseball fans but knew that the Cubs had won the World Series and they wanted to see the parade for themselves. Like it was an event where you had to be there to really understand what was happening because it was phenomenal. It's probably one of the coolest gatherings I've ever been to in my life, and and it was one of the most. It was just one of the greatest sports celebrations you could ever hope to attend in your life, in my personal opinion.
My favorite moment like that is also a baseball related one, and that is back in 2014 when you had Derek Jeter and Andy Pettitte remove Mariano Rivera from his final game.
Okay, that was super emotional too. Yeah,
That
seeing that and then seeing Derek Jeter's final home at bat at Yankee Stadium when he hit the walk off. That was that.
which coincidentally, going back to the Jewish thing, occurred on Yom Kippur,
Right.
which translates to the Day of Atonement in Hebrew.
Right.
And it is the one holiday on which we Jews don't eat. So that is to me, to have his career end like that in New York. It's a storybook ending for a storybook player. Just as the Cubs were. That
Exactly.
was, yeah.
Exactly.
That's what sports should be like. And to me, it doesn't take enough advantage of moments like that. It tries, but it fails in a
Right.
lot in a
But
lot of
there's also the other side to that argument, which is there are going to be moments in sports that you'll always remember forever, no matter how many years passes by, you'll always remember where you were for certain things. So that's also a very interesting point as well.
which if you want us to, we will touch on in a next episode. But for now, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. Sound good?
Yeah, it sounds good. I personally like to take it away for the outro, so I am going to do so. So,
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, you have listened to today's production of um, Sports Talk from A to Z. My name is Zan Bando. You can follow me on all social media platforms at ZanBando99. I do a whole host of other things other than this podcast with my fellow comrade here. Including a lot of different writing gigs. I've done a bunch of social media stuff in the past, and I kind of have a little bit of a well-rounded wheelhouse. So any questions you guys have personally for me, please feel free to reach out. My messages are always open all the time. Of course, you can follow this podcast, Mad Sports Talk from A to Z, just straight through on Instagram. And of course, to promote the show, we'll post our still shots like we do every week, so you guys know when we post another episode. And yeah, thank you guys again. Thank you guys again for the support, and we look forward to seeing you next week. This was a very engaging discussion. For Avery Schaefer, I'm Zan Bando, and this is us saying goodbye for now, as this has been another edition of Sports Talk from A to Z.
We'll see you on Tuesday.